Why, how lovely of you to ask, Nurse Joy, but today we are not going to be restoring our Pokemon here. In fact, we're not using items to restore HP or power points at all in this graveyard run in Pokemon Lazy Green. Nope. Instead, we barter with Pokemon Souls. That's right. The ghosts we'll encounter here are a limited roster from generations 1 through 3. Now, Sableye is the only option for starters in this monotype mode, and we're going to pick up a Duskull and Shuppet before we reach the first gym. Now, early gameplay, we do have some distinct advantages as normal type moves cannot hurt us, and this is great because HP cannot be restored as normal. It's hard to say how many unfortunate souls will be placed in the RIP box by the time we hit the Indigo Plateau, but earning badges will allow us to resurrect them. Fainted Pokemon in the RIP box will cost 2 badges to resurrect. However, if a Pokemon is still alive and I can manage to place it in the graveyard box, it becomes fully restored. However, if I want to withdraw it and add it back to the team, it's going to cost me 1 badge. There are only 8 badges to consume, so when I choose to resurrect a Pokemon, it better be worth it. As for right now, we collect the first badge from Brock and make our way towards Mount Moon. But along the way, I need to be careful. I don't want to engage every trainer. Instead, I need to preserve enough power points to ensure I can make it through the other side of this mountain. But before we do, we're going to catch the Misdreavus in the grass just south of its entrance, because we'll need all the variety and, quite honestly, a rotation of sacrificial ghosts on our lineup in order to press further into Kanto. I can catch ghosts until my team is full, but that's it. I cannot exploit the box and send a wild Pokemon straight to it. But in this monotype mode, none will appear here inside Mount Moon. And that's great because we are trying to preserve as much power points and health as possible. You see, here in Lazy Green, it's not about the grind, but we are leveling up to those caps pretty quickly. Unfortunately, that doesn't necessarily make these key battles any easier. Already, my ghosts have lost many immunities against these diversified movesets, and that means no one is safe, not even my starter. But Sableye is the only Pokemon on my lineup that would cost a badge to replace. That's because it is the only one that cannot be encountered again. This is the only Sableye we'll ever find. And as for these other souls, they are indeed unfortunate, as they may end up as sacrifices. But alas, have ye no fear. It is all part of the cycle, I think. Or I hope at least, because I would hate to have any of these souls go in vain.
This won't be the last soul we lose. We need to be somewhat intentional.
It will be important to keep key Pokemon on the lineup alive, lest I be forced to consume a badge. Now, I've only got 1 at this point, and I would hate to lose it this early on. But the rival battle left Sableye in pretty bad condition. Luckily, there are plenty of wild Misdreavus west of Cerulean City to replenish the team's life force. That's right, these components of this ghost lineup are essentially sharing lifeblood. But the question remains, how many Misdreavus do we need in order to cross Nugget Bridge? Yes, I foresee another sacrifice, and that's because not only do ghost-type moves tend to have low power point caps, but the damage scales off a Pokemon's attack stat, and ghosts, what do they tend to lack? Attack stat. Ironically, Lick and Nightshade might actually be the core mechanic behind this run, but we'll dive into that later. As for now, we've replenished our team with some more Misdreavus, and we make our way to Bill's place to grab that SS ticket. I want to sneak onto the SSN before facing Misty, because capped at their current level, I don't think they stand a chance in Cerulean City. 4 souls have totally passed on over, but Sableye is still hanging on by a thread. Therefore, I think it's necessary at this time to place it into the graveyard to be fully restored. But that means, while its HP and PP are once again at max, to withdraw it, I must consume the Boulder Badge. I forgot that Rock Tomb was in my pack prior to the match with the rival at Nugget Bridge. And unfortunately, hindsight is 2020. It's hard to say whether things would have turned out differently. But as for this match, it is a screaming success. Yes, with that speed debuff, Sableye earns priority and ends Pidgeotto in just 2 turns. However, Ivysaur manages to put Sableye to sleep, and that means we've got to get it out of dodge. Fortunately, sleep can be lifted naturally, but I wouldn't risk it in a high-stakes trainer battle. Good thing Kanto is filled with souls to harvest, but for now, Misdreavus is pretty useful. Although we have some psychic coverage now with its Psywave, its damage output is pretty inconsistent. But once these Misdreavus run out of power points for Psywave, they're no longer effective against other Pokemon like Raticate. Before retreating, Mia's parting gift to Raticate was confusion, and I'm hoping it buys me enough time to wake Sableye up and end this match. We collect, cut, and shift back to the area surrounding Cerulean City, where we're going to replenish our team's life force with new souls. That's right, we're going to add 2 Misdreavus to the team and attempt to astonish Misty into oblivion. But Water Pulse is a deadly move, and unfortunately sends another soul back to the grave. But we can't keep burying everybody, right? But if you haven't noticed, it sort of looks like Misty doesn't care, and I don't think she would send us off with a prayer either. After narrowly hanging on to the mortal coil, Dream manages to confound her Starmie, and it nearly takes itself out. But Dream is there to simply push it into its watery grave. We claim the Cascade Badge, and this is great news at this point. Back at the PC, the RIP box is quickly filling up with souls. The question is, how many souls will it cost us to claim the Thunder Badge from Lieutenant Surge? We must become like the ghosts we train, so prior to the match with Lieutenant Surge, I sneak through Diglett Tunnel back to Pewter City and collect a handful of Duskull for this match. Their special defense here will prove useful, but I don't expect great damage output, especially if we can't land a hit. That's why Duskull was my prime option. Although they'll wind up in a sacrificial pit, nothing else can cut through these double teams and ensure we lock on for damage. But if they become paralyzed, my mob of Duskulls is highly vulnerable, as Shockwave will never miss them. The inevitability of death looms overhead, and Raichu is the Reaper, sending sacrifice back to the twisting nether. But with Foresight in play now, we have managed to land every Nightshade. But unfortunately, it's just not enough at this level cap to take this Raichu out for good. So Scully jumps in to clean up the battle, and we claim the 3rd badge, the Thunder Badge. And this is great, because if things go left, we have some options. After last rites, it's time to head towards Rock Tunnel. Before jumping over the ledge, though, we collected a few more souls to add to the team, but unfortunately, ones like Boo may not live to see the light on the other side of Rock Tunnel. We won't be able to avoid every battle along the way, so preserving my best Pokemon for key battles is of primary concern here. While some of these ghosts are well suited to be sacrifices, others may be saved. If I can manage to return to a Pokemon Center and place an injured Pokemon into the graveyard before it passes on, it could be redeemed at a later time. If I have the correct number of badges, I can always revisit the graveyard, but just because I save a soul doesn't mean I'm gonna put it back on the team. With only 2 badges at my disposal at this time, I don't think it's a great idea to consume any of those in exchange for a fallen soul, because even unassuming foes like this Weedle could force my hand. Once again, I become like an apparition, skirting the edges of the maps and avoiding any unnecessary battles. As a matter of fact, without Pokemon Lazy Green's easy experience mechanic, I don't think the Grave Run would be possible at all. Before our hike through Rock Tunnel, we drop into the Pokemon Center not to heal, but to review the current status of our ghosts. Their power points are just one facet of the soul tie they share. In fact, these Pokemon rely on each other to level up and make progression, but from time to time, I'll have to swap moves out to increase my viability going forward. TMs will allow me to break through any walls where power points run dry. However, the use of a TM does require the sacrifice of an old move. Regardless of a slight boost in the power point reserves, soon they too will run dry, and HP can only be restored by boxing a Pokemon, and that costs badges. So while I'm able to sneak through most of Rock Tunnel unnoticed, I'm reserving those precious power points for key mandatory battles. Normally, the Geodude here are feared for their ability to explode, but since my ghosts are actually immune to self-destruct, I need only fear Rock Throw. In fact, that's about the scariest thing I'll encounter inside Rock Tunnel. My ghosts are feeling well at home here in the dark, but we can't stay here too much longer. Lavender Town calls. But before we go boo-hooing up and down Pokemon Tower, I want to make a quick pit stop in Celadon City, because the OG ghoul, Ghastly, can be found in the area, and in order to reach its final form, I'll need to make a few arrangements. First, we must pay our respect to the lost. Not only does this clean up our lineup and allow us to catch a Ghastly, our weakened ghost like Dream may be restored in the graveyard and withdrawn at the cost of the Cascade badge. After doing so and making sure there is space on the lineup for our next ghost, Ghastly, it's time to head through the tunnels and into Celadon City. While I'm here, I'm grabbing the tea and sharing it with the guards so I can revisit old haunts like Pewter City. Lost Shuppet and Duskull drift through these grasses, waiting for a trainer like me. Now both new souls and old souls can access the ancestral TM archive at Celadon City. Not only that, the department store also carries a linking cord item which I can use to summon a Gengar as my familiar. Of course, we know that in Kanto, Gengar is insane. This thing is an amazing addition to the team. Not only that, our spirits are lifted, as our Pokemon also have a new arsenal of moves. Our Shuppet remains unevolved. We're capped at level 25 until we beat the rival here at Pokemon Tower. Shuppet is also very fragile, so we have to lean into its special attack and hope for the best. Now that we have access to that patch of grass just south of Pewter City, Shuppet is also an easy sacrifice. However, I can't be throwing souls willy-nilly into the twisting nether. I would be wise to make sacrifices intentionally. With only the Thunder Badge remaining, we would have no souls left to bargain with. It would be game over if the team wiped here. But Gyarados doesn't care, and he's dealing heavy damage, sending one soul back to an early grave. Luckily, Gengar can take a hit or two, plus it's pretty fast. Not only that, there are plenty of other Ghastly in the grasses nearby just longing to be put to rest should this one fall in battle today. But the nightmare continues when Growlithe enters the field. It's best sometime to opt for confusion, just in case this is the last turn that poor soul would ever take. As my ghosts dissipate onto the battlefield, the pressure mounts. Now we have to deal with Ivysaur, and status effects are back on the board. This would be highly unfortunate for my ghosts. A team wipe here is run ending, but I am not giving up just yet. Perhaps there is no forgiveness for me if I fail, should Bones be another soul lost in vain. The team is reduced to Dream and Sableye, but with Aerial Ace, this is a quick victory, and in the nick of time, too. Things are starting to look pretty grim on the other side, and now the Pokeballs are vibrating with energy, calling for fresh souls. Before approaching Erica, we shift planes, revisiting the memories of routes past, and recollect another team of souls. Will they survive? No, probably not, but that's okay, right? By now, I am at peace with the fact that some of these souls are meant to stick around longer than others. We'll just put it that way. But for right now, I'm trying to keep my favorites very much alive as they can be. As always, the challenge with the grass-type Pokemon inside Celadon City Gym are the status effects. If a soul is so unfortunate as to pick up a status effect like, let's say, paralysis or poison, maybe it's just safe to say it wasn't meant to be. But I desperately need the Rainbow Badge. All I have to do is survive. Losing Sableye here wouldn't end the run, but it would leave me in limbo. You see, if I wanted it back on the team, I would have to instantly consume the Thunder Badge and the Rainbow Badge, and I feel like that would put me back at square one. It's much wiser to offer up other souls in some instances. I can hear it now. It's like bells coming from the PC, calling these souls home. They'll fight to the bitter end, finally at rest in the PC. As for the surviving souls, they're managing to hold their ectoplasmic forms together pretty well, and Vapors exacts revenge. Erica claims 2 souls, and we claim the Rainbow Badge. And despite our losses, I think we're in a pretty good position. We're going to place Vapors into the graveyard and fully restore it, but we're not choosing to resurrect it. That's right, it shall remain at peace here. As the death toll mounts, we press onward into Kanto. But not before a seance or two. We certainly need to replenish the team's life force by adding more souls. Oddly enough, we still can't see the ghosts at Pokemon Tower, so I need to collect the Sylph Scope. With fresh souls on the lineup, it's time to handle these rocket grunts, collect our prizes, and enhance our ghostly team. But honestly, we have very little time for their petty earthly quarrels. To progress, we pay in souls, and Giovanni is no exception. Should he claim any souls, they shall be lesser minions. Sableye should be summoned carefully. And so the bargaining begins, because at some point, I'm going to want to restore this Sableye, and that's going to cost me 1 badge. The longer I can hold on to these badges, the more options I'll have later. Even so, Giovanni won't force that decision on us today, which is great, because some of these Pokemon are meant to be sacrificed in the wild in order to raise our new team of souls to their new level caps. At level 40, many of the ghosts can now evolve. Although at this point, it is still hard to say whether these souls be transient or rooted in the physical. With another otherworldly lineup, it's time to face off with Koga, but first, we must get there. Once again, we adopt invisibility, avoiding all detection, moving silently and deliberately. On a bike named Banshee, Burger couldn't be seen, but legend says you could hear his brakes and smell burning rubber. But in Fuchsia, there are invisible dangers, namely walls. Inside, sneaky like a ninja, but not all the time. It's possible to avoid most of the trainers inside Fuchsia City Gym, but this time around, I'm not so lucky. But the scales of life have been balanced on our team by the addition of a few new ghosts. And in here, for the most part, we have a distinct level advantage. But sleep, confusion, and worst of all, poison affect my team, with the slightest exception in Gengar. But now I'm beginning to question, how many souls is a badge worth? And am I willing to find out? The answer is yes. Soon, however, there may come a time when it's not so easy to say goodbye so easily. And we mustn't forsake the souls that landed safely inside the graveyard box. But it's probably best not to bargain with any of these badges if we're not holding them just yet. Sadly, I am quickly reminded that being unprepared makes unforeseen circumstances twice as difficult to deal with. While Drowsy poses little threat, I'm outsped by Hypno, and Afterlife is swiftly poisoned. The predicament I'm in now is whether I should let Afterlife live up to its name and deposit it into the RIP box once it faints, or burn up some precious psychic power points. In this case, though, I don't think Afterlife could survive the trip to the graveyard box. Therefore, I'm opting for the former. Afterlife will go down as a sacrifice in this match. Afterlife's fate has been written. I will allow Koga's muck to claim its soul, and I watch as it draws its last breath on the battlefield. But the reaping of souls must stop with Afterlife. Once Gengar's on the field, Psychic will rip through Koga's lineup. No trouble whatsoever. But the downside is that Shade will burn through its remaining power points for Psychic. As long as it has HP left, this Gengar could be deposited into the graveyard and restored. But are there better options out there in the great beyond? We can always teach another Gengar Psychic, but this Psychic we nabbed from Mr. Psychic in Saffron City. Yes, the Mr. Psychic. But until we beat Sabrina, we don't unlock that TM for purchase at the Celadon City Mart. But we've only just claimed the Soul Badge, which means we've parted ways with the Fainted, and we begin collecting more souls for our next match in Saffron City. After a few fresh souls are added to the lineup, we find ourselves inside the heart of Saffron City Gym just before Sabrina, and we were able to teleport here without facing one of her minions. This badge should be the easiest to obtain, and I hope to do so at the cost of 0 souls, because the closer we creep to the Indigo Plateau, the more decisive I must be. One thing's for sure though, the more badges I have to bargain with, the better. Some of these Pokemon only need to visit the graveyard for a brief stay before rejoining the team, and at the cost of 1 measly badge, it doesn't seem like that bad of a trade for bringing an S-tier Pokemon back to the Mortal Coil, fully restored and fully reloaded. Sabrina doesn't care though, as she selfishly guards the badge. We hit a snag on her Venomoth though, so I swap out to save a soul. But now the bells are tolling and P-Geist is clinging onto this world. For now, we can only hope to manipulate the life forces between P-Geist and Mr. Mime, but Sabrina swiftly claims its soul. But the soul was not claimed in vain, as it allowed a clear landing for Shade to come in and deliver final blows to Sabrina's remaining Pokemon. Shade's versatility has allowed it to become one of the most survivable ghosts on the lineup so far, but our ghosts are going to need a little bit of help to reach Cinnabar Island after we claim the Marsh Badge. Surfo won't be used in battle, but it does take up a team slot, so if I want to catch any Pokemon while it's in my party, I need to plan accordingly. After a quick pit stop at Mom's back in Pallet Town, I played Lazy Green on the SNES and set sail south towards Cinnabar Island. My Pokemon and I sneak through Pokemon Mansion to find the secret key and enter Blaine's gym. We know all the answers to all the quiz questions, so there's no need to fight any trainers here, with the exception of Blaine. We need that Volcano Badge, but will it cost us any souls? I'm sure it will. Fire Blast hits hard. Veils was recently added to our roster of the living undead, and it manages Arcanine without too much trouble, but with very little HP left, it's probably best we try to keep our foes confused. But Blaine wants my ghosts on a pyre. Confused Ray will slightly reduce my chances of being hit, but once it wears off, I may have to pivot. But on the flip side, we have no way of restoring this Gengar's HP without consuming a badge. And while Veils is in limbo, we still need it to lay some damage on this Rapidash. Yet a familiar scent on the air. Burning Soul. But the battle is not over yet, and Psyche's special defense allows it to tank a Fire Blast, ending the battle swiftly with a Psybeam. We claim the Volcano Badge. Once again, it's time to bury the Fainted and pay them final respects before making our way back to Viridian City. It's time to claim the Earth Badge by facing off with Giovanni one final time. Another dire battle means another collection of souls. We can manage some incoming damage, but from time to time, we're going to have to make use of our abilities to avoid damage altogether. This Gengar levitates on the battlefield and can't be slashed or poisoned. This puts us in a great position. With Rhyhorn going down to Perish Song in the last round, Giovanni is forced to hand over the Earth Badge. Now we have 6 badges available for soul trades. But before bartering with any of them, we must accept that some of these souls are still at stake. I can smell it. The rival is demanding a toll. We haven't even reached Victory Road yet, and already the bargaining must begin. I hope it wasn't a mistake letting Surfa tag along for this match, but something tells me I was a bit preemptive. Maybe I should have waited until after this match. Maybe I should have offered up another sacrifice just to be safe. Some of these fallen souls could be easily replaced by another recruit. Sableye is an exception, but Surfa doesn't care. In fact, it just spectates, watching one by one my ghost evaporate on the battlefield. These ghosts need to be ride or die, even if that means simply sticking around one more turn to leave a parting gift. Now it's not wise to switch. Bayonet offers itself up as tribute. Our rival takes a third soul. If I don't turn this around soon, I could be spending badges on souls. And if I run out, it's essentially a death sentence. But now I'm forced to switch, and Sableye is exposed to danger. Its soul is claimed by my rival. I cannot let this stand, but now that means for certain I must immediately consume 2 badges to restore it to my team. But before committing to any soul trades or catching fresh souls, I think we need to take a minute to peruse the Fallen. Of course, Pokemon from the graveyard could be resurrected to the team at the cost of 1 badge, but I'm looking through the RIP box, and we trade 4 badges for 2 souls before heading off towards Indigo Plateau. Smeargle is now my lifeline. Ironically, Surfa gets us to Lance, but falls last, and we still have 2 badges. Plus, we haven't even caught a Shedinja yet. Unlike our ghosts, the Smeargle can cheat death this once, allowing us to reach mainland Kanto and rebuild the team, beginning with resurrecting our Sableye, as we'll need it to access the patch of grass where Shedinja reside. However, without the ability to fly back to the Indigo Plateau, surely the Smeargle would die from exhaustion, and once we reach the Indigo Plateau, we'll have to box it with the other RIPs. Once again, we face the Elite Four, but this time the team is reduced to 5. Sableye is supported by 4 fresh souls. But having consumed every last badge in order to resurrect team members throughout this journey, we reached the point of no return. Lorelei claims 1 of those souls, leaving 4 on the brink of everlasting. Though many have fallen, their ancestral knowledge has been passed from soul tie to soul tie. By drawing on our ancestral knowledge of our first match with Lorelei, we knew that Gengar was the ticket here. Though not flawless, our second victory against Lorelei only costs us 1 soul. As far as Bruno is concerned, you would think we have a lot more immunities than we actually do. I'm beginning to question whether I should have bothered to add Shedinja to the team at all. Even though Shedinja was simply a lost soul in the wild, in effect, it did cost me 2 badges to obtain one, as I needed to resurrect Sableye, the only ghost that knows Cut. Unfortunately, Shedinja's Wonder Guard may be of no use, unless it survives long enough for a Lance rematch. But after laying our trusty Sableye to rest once and for all, this is starting to feel like a funeral procession. The remaining souls on our lineup have a tough road ahead. We were hoping to use this Dusclops for a rematch with Lance at full health, but turns out we might be using it earlier than anticipated. We've collected so many Duskull souls around Pewter City, where we could also safely train them to their level 60 cap. It would be downright disrespectful to disregard all of the souls that were simply sacrificed to switch training these Pokemon in preparation for meeting the Elite Four not once, but twice. Not once did Nurse Joy heal our ghosts. No. And neither a potion nor an ether was spritzed on these poor souls. And they all deserve a memorial. At least 60 souls have been placed in that big PC box in the sky. We're back for round 2 with Agatha now, and I've got to admit, she never really seems excited that I'm back in her chambers. Our Gengars face to face, a grim reflection. You would think we are equally matched. However, Agatha's Golbat breaks the pattern, and it outspeeds my Gengar. Gothico dropped Ice Beam for Earthquake in order to handle Arbok, but won't even survive Golbat, leaving Husk, our Shedinja, as the final soul. I look at the 8 badges before me, consumed, drained of all life force, and a shiver goes down my spine. Today, Agatha was filling in for the Grim Reaper, and without any badges left to bargain with, my journey ends here. But I really want to say thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. This was a tough challenge. Let me know if you think we should try this again, or tell me what would you do differently. All right, till next time, peace.